Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Georges River Local Planning Panel. Um, I'm Donna Reigate, and I'm chairing the panel this afternoon. The panel is currently streaming from the Georges River Council offices in McMahon Street, Hurstville. The people who are on the panel today are Judith Clark and Linda Gosling, our expert panel members, and Andrew Lukopoulos, who is the community representative on the panel. So welcome to all of you. We've been appointed by the Minister for Planning to determine specified development applications, including the applications that are on the agenda today, in accordance with the requirements of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act. I'd like to acknowledge on behalf of the whole panel the Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of all lands, waters and sky in the Georges River area. We want to pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who live, work and meet on these lands. You may have worked it out for yourselves, but I'm required to advise you that under the provisions of the EP&A Act, this meeting of the panel is being live streamed and will be made available on Council's website. People who want to make representations to the panel were requested to register a summary of their interests. We've got 14 people who've registered to speak, and I could read out the list of names, or I'll just read out the list of names as I call each of you to come up and speak, because it might save time rather than reading out the 14 people. As required by the Local Planning Panel Code of Conduct, members are required to disclose conflicts of interest in respect of any matter on the agenda for a panel meeting. Everybody has completed the relevant forms, and those are tabled to be included in the online minutes of the meeting, and no one has disclosed any conflicts in relation to any matters on today's agenda. I'll just do an extra check in case something may have come up since you filled in your form that you wanted anyone. Nothing's emerged. Same for me, so we still have no conflicts. Great. We've got assessment reports from Council for the matters that we're considering today, and we've done site inspections and looked at the nearby localities for the matters on the agenda today. We'll be dealing with each of them in order as published on the Council's website. So we will be discussing a planning proposal for an affordable housing contribution scheme. The first development application is DA 2025/0397, 143 Stony Creek Road, Beverly Hills, demolition works and construction of a restaurant. Next one is DA 2025/0467, which is 66 to 68 Woods Avenue, Allawa, demolition works and construction of a residential flat building with affordable housing units. That's followed by DA 2025/0535, 153 Queens Road, Connells Point, demolition works and construction of dwelling house with swimming pool. Then we'll have DA 2025/0341, 66 to 68 Lorraine Street, Peakhurst, alterations and additions for mixed-use development. And the final DA that we'll be considering today is DA 2025/0505, 15 Walton Street, Lakehurst, demolition works, construction of dual occupancy with swimming pools and Torrens Title subdivision. So as we progress through the matters on today's agenda, only those people who've registered to speak will be able to make representations to the panel, and everybody who's registered to speak is required to limit their presentation to 3 minutes each. We need people to speak clearly and of sufficient volume so that it projects through the speakers, and so that the people on the live stream can hear what you've got to say. And there, for the people on screen who are speaking via online means, they need to leave their cameras and microphones open until it's their turn to speak. I'm required to remind everybody that any defamatory, discriminatory or offensive language may result in the person who uses it being exposed to liability, for which Council and the panel take no responsibility. So what happens is we hear from the people who've registered to speak. Panel members may or may not ask those people questions depending on the matter and what's said. And then we'll We'll hear from each of the speakers. We'll close the public meeting and move into a deliberative meeting where we'll form a view on the matters before us today, and we will endeavour to get the minutes of the meeting up on Council's website within usually 2 to 3 days of the meeting, so as quickly as possible. So that's the preliminaries. I'll now call the first item, and we're talking about the proposed restaurant at 143 Stony Creek Road, Beverly Hills. Our first speaker is Costa Dantos. Now, Mr. Dantos, there's a little button that you press on there and it'll go red, and then you'll be...
Ah, perfect. Thank you. Is it all right if I put the stopwatch? Just very quick. All right. Thank you and good afternoon, everyone. I am an immediate neighbour of the proposed Guzman and Gomez premises in Beverly Hills. I'm also speaking today on behalf of many other immediate neighbours in the area who asked for me to speak as I couldn't make it. I would like to thank the Georges River Council Planning and other staff for their investigations into this DA. I won't repeat all the matters raised, as I believe as local planning panellists, you would have read a lot of, or most or all of what's in the documents. But I just want to reiterate 3 points. Number one, the main issue, I think the proposed 24/7 trading hours being certainly incompatible with this location, being completely surrounded by residential properties, where after 9 p.m. the area becomes very quiet with significantly reduced road traffic and a lot of other chaos that can occur. Furthermore, no other premises anywhere in Beverly Hills operates 24 hours a day, and this premises isn't even proposed in the Beverly Hills local centre area, which everyone usually knows is along King George's Road for restaurants. Number two, the development would generate a lot more traffic on Cambridge Street and Stony Creek Road. The opposite side of Stony Creek Road currently, where Guzman and Gomez is proposed, is backed up a lot of the time between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. approximately every day for 400 metres between King George's Road and Penshurst Street. This traffic would get even worse if more this traffic is also getting worse every year as more and more people avoid the M5 tolls, which results in Stony Creek Road users being stuck at red lights for longer periods. Guzman and Gomez customers would just create an additional bottleneck straight through the middle of the heavy traffic as they approach Stony Creek Road from Cambridge Street. And there's already a lot of road rage and dangerous driving that occurs around this vicinity, and traffic lights wouldn't be an answer either. Number three, which is a note from one of the neighbours, in the midst of a housing crisis, this isn't mine, villas would be more appropriate on the large lot, which is commensurate with other properties nearby, rather than providing another fast food outlet. Villas and something similar would create more housing options for people, and would not generate the noise and traffic like this proposal does. To conclude, I again thank all of you and the local planning panel members for your time, and I hope you concur with the recommendations of the Georges River City. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members of the panel, any questions for Mr. Dantos? No? No? Okay, thank you very much. I'll now call Ali Gatcham, and my apologies in advance if I mispronounce people's surnames.
You call me Ali G if you like.
Go for a TV show.
So thank you for that. My name is Ali. I live directly next door to this proposed development along the western boundary of the site. And this proposal is for a 24-hour licensed fast food restaurant with a dual drive-through, operating every hour of every day directly beside my home. And as such, I'd like to start with my gravest concern, which is the drive-through ordering system. The submitted plans show that the drive-through lanes and ordering microphones are positioned along the western boundary, directly next to my home. This means that vehicles will be queuing just meters away from my property line, and from my home, I'll be able to hear cars idling, horns honking, engines revving, people speaking into the ordering microphones, and amplified speakers responding. And because this restaurant is proposed to operate 24 hours a day, this activity will continue to the middle of the night and the early hours of the morning. So for me and my family, there will be effectively no quiet period at night. The second issue for me is the commercial waste facility. Now, the landscape plans show a 23 square metre bin that is to be located on the western side of the plan, and the waste management plan estimates approximately 2,400 litres of waste every single week. That for me would mean bin movements that I'll be able to hear from my home, glass disposal noise, food waste handling, so I may be subjected to bad odour, pest attraction, and obviously the waste collection activity. So the proposal for me also includes the sale of alcohol, and the applicant's own prime risk assessment acknowledges that late night trading combined with alcohol can increase the potential for antisocial behaviour. So when I look at this proposal as a whole, what I see beside my home is a 24-hour business selling alcohol, operating dual drive-through lanes with amplified ordering speakers, and managing a commercial waste facility beside my property. So when all these things are combined, the cumulative impact on my home and the neighbouring homes will be hugely negative on the quality of life. So personally, I believe I will be the single most directly impacted resident by this development. No other property in the street sits as close to the drive-through ordering systems and commercial waste facilities as my home does. And for that reason, I respectfully but strongly ask the panel to refuse this application. However, if the panel is minded to approve it, I would urge you to impose meaningful protections for the residential interface, including the relocation of the drive-through ordering system and microphones away from my boundary, the relocation of the waste enclosure to the eastern side, and substantial restrictions on operating hours and alcohol trading. Without those protections, I want the record to clearly and accurately reflect that this proposal will place an unbearable and ongoing burden on the amenity of my home and the well-being of my family. I come here today in good faith, and I trust that the panel and the council will consider carefully the impact that this development will have.
Thank you very much. Panel members, questions? No? No, thank you very much. Oh, sorry.
So you're saying, yeah, there's two speakers on your side. You're just living right adjacent.
Correct.
Yeah, there's two comm speakers.
There's two speakers right next to my wall, my western side.
Yeah, and your other problem was the garbage bin, the waste bin.
The other problem is the garbage bin. It's a little further away, but I'm worried about the odour and the potential pest risk. So if that can be transferred to the eastern side, that will be easier.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next speaker is Gavin Burgess.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity today. And what I'd like to do, I've been living in the area for over 20 years, so I know the area quite well. My first real objection is the fact that it's actually in a residential area. There's residential homes, as my fellow sort of people have alluded to. There's homes on either side, both Stony Creek Road and also down Cambridge Street. So there's homes all around that particular area. The second thing in particular is the traffic congestion, which is also was mentioned. So the traffic at the moment in the morning is banked up all the way at Cambridge Street up to Young Street from usually around 7 to 9 in the morning, and it's also from 2 to 4 in the afternoon. Now that is because of Stony Creek Road, obviously extended traffic, but also because you've had massive increases in St Declan's and Princess Public School. So a lot of actually the people there travel up and down Cambridge Street already. So there's huge traffic increases already in that part of the area, and that'll continue and actually get worse with this actual development. The other thing I want to raise is in particular it's the 24 hours. So there's no other business restaurant in the area that's 24 hours. You look at the other areas in Beverly Hills, they shut a lot earlier, and those particular restaurants obviously back onto King George's Road, whereas this one actually backs onto Stony Creek Road. So the hours of operation are completely ridiculous in the scheme of things in where it's currently located. Noise pollution is going to be, as mentioned before by one of my other colleagues, is fundamentally it's going to be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You've got cars coming on down, you can have cars backed up because they can't get in and out, and it's going to be unbearable. If you look at what's happened to Punchbowl, so Punchbowl has a GYG that's 24 hours there, so hopefully some people here have actually gone and visited there. You'll see there's traffic backed up all the way down the road, cars are going in and out all the time. and that is not a designated residential area. So if anybody's actually gone out there and done some site inspections of that particular location of business, that's exactly what will happen in this area if you actually agree to it. And you will actually have residential residents complaining on a regular basis. So I strongly object to it. I am actually representing a number of people in the street that unfortunately can't make it today because they've got work commitments. And fundamentally, I think it's an application that's not suitable for the location. And there's other sites, particularly on King George's Road, that GYG could quite easily open up.
Thank you very much. Okay. Questions? No? Nope. Thank you. I'd now like to ask, we've got two people here on behalf of the applicant, or actually one's on Teams, Cale Langford and Martin Squires.
Hi, yes, Cale's here.
Okay, and Martin's meant to be here. We normally have the applicant people together, don't we? Yeah. Okay, so we've got you both now. All right, you can take it from here.
All right, hi. Thank you for your time today, for everyone, the panel, and the representatives. We do a lot of these applications throughout the state. This one in particular is an exciting opportunity for this location being an underdeveloped lot. It's seen previous applications with a previous medical centre. Just to run through a couple of points, we are seeking a deferral decision tonight. That is on the back of input from councils, assessing officers, and their recommendations in the report. We have since provided additional information to satisfy those matters. That includes two of the matters which council note were inherently resolvable. We believe those are now resolved, up to them to complete that out. And additional information for the third matter being related to noise has also been provided. So we seek a deferral for the decision to enable council to go over that information, make a decision, and move forward with whatever outcome they see fit. In terms of the items raised by the community, the traffic load, referencing back to the previous approval being the medical centre, we'll see a halving of the projected traffic load in comparison to that medical centre. In terms of noise, we've done extensive noise. Council's environmental health officer has really done a above board job and really made us do a lot of extra work to satisfy criteria above what guidance would typically say, which has been good with collaborative with him. And just a note on waste, that enclosure, the waste is always on that side of the building because it's down to the vehicle actually circulating to that location. Yeah, I might hand over to Marty if you want to say a few words because we've got limited time.
Thanks, Cale. Yeah, just to, I guess, reinforce Cale's point that we're seeking to defer the decision pending review of those three key matters being traffic and minor changes to the car park. The updated acoustic report we provided, which is just additional data in relation to rainfall and assessment of the alfresco area, and then the retention of the trees on the neighbouring property where we've made adjustments to the earthworks that will retain those trees, and obviously further work can be done on route mapping to ensure that they're actually retained. Just a comment in terms of, obviously I acknowledge the local residents' concerns, but a point of note, the site is located on an arterial road, which sees cars in excess of 40,000 vehicles a day. So whilst it's surrounded by residential usage, you've got a major arterial road fronting a large majority of the site, and the site's permissible for restaurant use. So look, whilst we acknowledge those concerns, I think we've addressed them satisfactorily in the reports that we've provided and the subsequent submissions to council that we've provided over the last 3 months, which has landed us at these 3 relatively minor issues, which we believe we've comprehensively addressed in this additional information, which we'd be happy for council to review and defer the decision pending review of those matters.
Thank you both. Okay,
Thank you.
now to the panel questions.
You mentioned trees,
Press your button.
which are the trees, you're saying that there's 2 that'll have root mapping, that you're preserving. So, yeah, I'm just not sure which ones they are.
I think there's at least 2, maybe 3 trees on the southwestern or far back left corner of the site.
Yes.
Are they council trees? Are they?
No, they're trees on neighbouring properties.
Okay.
And so we've adjusted the earthworks, which would ensure that we're not intruding in that structural root zone, so those trees can be retained. I mean, there are some trees within the site which obviously need to be removed, which and there's replacement trees we're providing, but where we can retain certainly trees on neighbouring properties, we will, and where we've been able to retain trees on the site, we've also done so where council have directed us.
So you are retaining some trees that are on your site?
We are, yes.
Yeah, so there will be a drawing that explains that?
Yeah, I mean, we've submitted an initial landscaping plan and we've made a number of adjustments to the earthworks to address the trees on the neighbouring property. So look, we'd expect to do a subsequent landscaping plan to show those trees we're retaining.
Yeah, and planting, there'd be a bit of planting. Okay. Another thing, this is left field maybe, but these buildings, they're standard.
They are.
So I've just got one question about staff and their amenities. So they don't have their own toilet or tea room. Is that right?
No, I mean, we provide obviously male or female ambulance toilets within the restaurant. So
they use
by customers and by the team members, yes.
And what about tea? Like, do they have tea breaks?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In accordance with employment laws, they have tea breaks, and we typically have an office and a team room within our standard drive-through footprint.
Yeah, I just can't see that.
Yeah.
There's an
It's labelled.
There's an office. That's where.
It's labelled as crew on the floor plan.
Yeah.
So what is it labelled as?
Crew.
Oh, crew. Yes, I see. Yes. Okay. All right.
Yes.
No.
Okay.
Thank you. While we're on trees, there's a very, very large gum tree out on the main road. Is that to be removed?
Yes, I believe so. Where the structure of the drive-through is coming through, it wouldn't be able to be retained.
When you say it wouldn't be able to be retained, that's because you want to put your building where it is.
Or the drive-through structure is coming through there. I'd need to confirm, but I believe that tree was due to be removed as part of the previous medical centre approval as well.
Yeah, it's just to elaborate a bit more, due to its size, its root area is also equally as large. And basically it would extend underneath the existing RTA building. So disturbing, even knocking down the existing building, could have impacts on that tree. And certainly any development, unless it was extremely set back from the Stony Creek Road, would have impacts on that tree. It just wouldn't be viable for any development of the site. And yeah.
Okay, thank you. The other thing is, you've heard the speakers. You've probably had access to the submissions. There are a large number. And the 24/7 trading is really something that people are very uncomfortable with, particularly as a, you know, an untested business, so to speak. I appreciate you've got this model in other places. I've read all your documents. I've read the material that came in at the last minute. You're silent in everything about any offer to address that, or I know I've seen your acoustic report. Have you considered, it's not uncommon in planning to have trials on long hours and or to have reduced hours. Have you considered any of that?
Not obviously in the application, but I'm aware of trial periods of 24-hour trading at similar restaurants. The objective of the 24/7 trade is perhaps not as people seem about serving drunk people at 3 a.m. It's really, those shoulder periods around midnight and early mornings, picking up shift workers, and tradies alike, rather than the perception that we're having hordes of people, turning up at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, which isn't the case or the objective. But in terms of trial periods, we've certainly seen that on other sites.
You're not suggesting you'd support that?
I guess it's for council to decide if that's the appropriate step, but we've certainly seen it on other sites.
Okay, and the speakers where you do your ordering from the car, you've got a site where you're demolishing a building. Have you thought about other options for locating those speakers compared to the interface with the nearest resident?
I guess, the position, the design of the drive-through is interrelated to the building, and we've set the building as far away from the boundary and those residents as possible to mitigate any impacts. A product of that is where those speaker call order points are. Noting the objectors' concerns, there are, I guess, measures that can be taken to minimise that noise around the speaker boxes, in particular limiting decibels and volumes and other sort of shielding devices which we've considered elsewhere.
And just to expand on that, essentially those speakers were accounted for in the acoustic modelling and found to comply with all guidance without any mitigations. But certainly if we need to explore some sort of mitigation just for some peace of mind for the neighbour, we can have a look at that.
Nothing further. Thank you. Andrew?
Yep, just a continuation on that speaker question. So was any consideration given in the design stage of reconfiguring the layout, effectively inverting the layout, having the speakers on the opposite side, say for argument's sake?
Yeah, look, it's a good question. I guess we need to circulate the building in a clockwise direction. So by inverting that layout, it moves the speaker boxes to the other side, but then it would take the building to the back of the site, and there you would have the pay and pick up windows. Effectively, you're putting the operation on the boundary and interface with the residential properties at the rear. Also in terms of traffic flow, access, avoiding conflicts and circulation, obviously we've sought to retain the existing crossover on Cambridge Street where it is. If we move the building, you wouldn't be able to get that flow into the drive-through. You'd have circulation issues on the side. But the primary reason is taking the building as far away from that rear residential boundary as possible. And a product of that is that the drive-through is on that far western side of the site. I mean, an engineering factor to that is obviously the flood affectation of this site and the levels that we've had to address, and the position of the building is critical for that as well. You've got an existing stormwater easement that runs through the site, which we've obviously avoided the requirements of Sydney Water, so that runs through the car park because you can't build over that easement. So there's a number of constraints which has led us to this design.
Can I just, sorry.
Yeah.
Can I ask for the drive-throughs, why do you have two? Where the speakers are, why would you need two?
I mean, it's really to maximise capacity and avoid the risk of any queuing back out of the drive-through and into the car park and causing, gridlock. It's really a capacity issue.
You mean it allows, so when they
At peak periods.
peak,
Yeah.
so 2 people ordering at once.
That's right. Yeah. And there may be occasions where one of the lanes is not operational at certain times.
Okay, so these guys have already asked my questions about whether you considered locating the ordering zone somewhere else. What about the waste areas? Did you consider putting that somewhere other than right near residences?
I guess, as mentioned earlier, it is a standard format building, which we span across our hundreds of sites. So, and obviously the loading truck needs to be able to access that bin area. When you look at the internal floor plan, the dining room is at the other side of the building. This is very much the back of house. So it's really a product of the layout. I'm not sure where else you would position it on site that would allow a garbage vehicle to easily and safely maneuver to it, which is important.
Yeah.
Obviously these bin areas in this one is enclosed and ventilated. We have regular waste removal. We can look at doing those at certain times that is obviously it's not occurring at times that may disturb sleep.
Yeah. Okay, so the answer is sort of no, you have a template for these things and you whack them down.
Yeah. It sort of works in harmony with the design of the restaurant and the site more generally. If we could pick it up and move it, and that could easily be serviced and safely, you've got team members walking bins across a car park, there's flow-on effects.
Yeah. On the issue of the hours of operation, you indicated that it's a really busy road that gets however many squillion cars a day, etc. Did you look at the different traffic volumes at different times of the day and night as part of your assessment? Because there are going to be huge numbers through there in peak periods, but it'd be very interesting to know what was going through there at 11 o'clock at night or whatever.
Yeah, I'd probably defer to Cale, who may have some material in front of him. His traffic team did the traffic assessment, and it would have been front of mind for the acoustic consultant as well, who would have looked at the background noise of the road during the nighttime period.
Yeah, so we calculated based on the AM and PM peaks, which as you can imagine is around 6 p.m. at night, people getting dinner. That's where the peak sort of sits. Doing it outside, like in the night period, is not really a facet of traffic impact assessment. You're sort of assessing worst case, which is those peaks.
Yeah. Okay. Do any of your other restaurants operate not 24 hours, or are they all 24 hours?
There are some. Typically the non-drive-throughs, which are in more densely populated strip areas where you don't have the high volumes of passing traffic. But progressively, our target is all of our drive-throughs will operate 24/7 where possible.
That's a thought, isn't it? The non-drive-through, there's a whole different concept. Tell me, you mentioned that there are devices and mechanisms that you can use to make the noise from that ordering process at the drive-through quieter, but they don't form part of what you've proposed, do they? Those measures?
No, it would be, I've seen, and they're quite bespoke, some sort of baffle, but more commonly is limitations on the decibels and the volume of those speaker boxes,
right.
Which we can certainly control.
Okay. And my final, it's probably just an observation really, that given that you've amended various things and slightly moved things and all of that, you'd need to submit an updated set of plans, wouldn't you? Before this could be decided.
Yes, we've gone through a lot of revisions so far, but you know, if we were required to, I guess, bring together a final and consolidated set, we could do that if there was updates required to ensure consistency.
All right, anybody got anything else for these applicants' representatives? No? Thank you both very much. Oh, hang on.
Sorry. Just one more question. So you mentioned that you've worked on several of these stores. Do you know of any instances where the standard template for these stores wasn't used and a bespoke plan was utilised?
It has happened. It has happened on occasion, typically where there's been physical or engineering constraints that have required that. You know, we design these in a way that, yes, they're, you know, operationally functional, but, you know, certainly with team members and team members' safety in mind, and mitigating impacts of traffic conflict and queuing off sites. So there are instances, but what we see is you make one amendment and it creates 3 other problems. So a lot of thought and work goes into this, and not, going back to the position of the building is very much to mitigate that impact on the residential interface, noting obviously the concerns around the speaker boxes and their position.
And just to expand on that, we also had to consider the Food Act and you know, safety for food being prepared and served. There's certain requirements in terms of internal circulation, which has been refined down to a point where it's very efficient, very clean. Everything's in train. We worked with Council's Environmental Health Officer to go through that and make sure that they were happy with that layout. And that's just another consideration that, you know, changing the box too much has flow-on effects on that process and that safety.
And just one follow-up question on the standard template design of these stores. Is there more than one template?
We do. We have a square template, which is, if you can imagine, this is shown with the pay and the pickup window on the same elevation. The square template has the pay and the pickup on a different elevation. In terms of the access and the position of the drive-through lanes, that is the same. The square template is used where you have a square aside. This is more rectangular and portrait, landscape. It's the use of the landscape. So we have those two. We have interrogated both designs on this side at the early planning stage. A lot of work goes into that before we submit to council.
Thank you.
One more.
Sorry. Is alcohol a standard operational offering in your, I'm just looking at your map of all the ones in the sort of 20-kilometre radius. Would all of those be licensed premises?
It is a standard. You know, where permitted, we have a very good track record of. I'm not aware of any instances where we've been knocked back on-premise license. It's an ancillary part of our business. We're not a pub. It's not. You know, it's very much ancillary.
And the way it operates, it's more like a restaurant where you get a bottle of whatever, a beer, served with your meal. That's how it sort of works, and that's all governed by the liquor license, which is subsequent to council approval. And they stipulate a whole bunch of requirements around that.
So will you be hoping to get approval to serve alcohol 24 hours a day as well?
I don't think you can actually serve alcohol 24 hours a day under New South Wales.
And 1 hour plating, I think is, yeah, but for all intents and purposes.
Look, the liquor license application is dealt with separately, obviously, to this. I mean, we'll, I guess, secure whatever hours we can. I think in the event that we're only permitted to serve alcohol to a time, I don't think that would be an issue on our part. We're certainly not looking to serve alcohol to people at 3 a.m.
Thank you. Okay, we done? Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll now move on to the application at Lloyds Avenue, Allawa. Our first speaker is Svetlana Kochevska.
Hi, thank you. I'm a town planner. My mum and I live behind the development. We co-own a unit in Noble Street. My mum's been living there for 20 years. I lived there for 7 years. So the proposal is inconsistent with the former Set 65 and the Apartment Design Guide, which is now known as Chapter 4 of the Housing SEP. In terms of its height, its bulk and scale, it's massive, as the town planner refers to it in the report, and it's out of context with its surrounds. The area, as you had already seen when you visited the site, is already established and not undergoing any change. The flat buildings are between 2 to 4 stories. The applicant's own document on page 9 states that the predominant character is 3-story walk-ups at the moment. So this proposal is double in height of what's around there. It's at 6 stories. So thus it's completely out of character and does not fit in with its context with these low-rise walk-up units in the leafy surrounds. So my contention is it's an eyesore in the established streetscape due to its height at 6 stories and the visual impact from Noble Street, which is actually lower based on the terrain. It will dominate us and it's the surrounds. So I also reiterate the council planner's concerns in the council report about the massing being non-compliant. The bulk and scale is inappropriate for this established neighbourhood. This is reflected in the numerous non-compliances with the proposal. Also, one thing that really stood out to me in the planner's report was that only 9% of the units achieve adequate cross ventilation in compliance with the Apartment Design Guide. So that's 90% that aren't getting good cross ventilation in a hot climate that we're in currently, right? My mum's unit currently gets 3-way cross ventilation. Cross ventilation was built in the 70s, so we're regressing here in terms of design. I now refer to clause 4.6, the variation request to the development standard of height. As the panel has kindly seen upon your site visit today, the existing flat buildings surrounding the site are a maximum of 2, 3 and 4 stories. 4 stories being the 3-story walk up with the actual garages underneath, hence it's 4 stories. The proposal is excessive in height, being it's 6 stories and imposes a bulk and scale that is visually out of context with the character of the neighbourhood. It is not considered reasonable or necessary to vary the clause 4.6 height standard, as there is not sufficient environmental grounds to justify a contravention. The proposal gets a 30% bonus under the affordable housing, the housing SEP, but they've also exceeded this by another 4 to 6%, totaling a 36% bonus. So we disagree with the claim by CPS, the planning consultant, that the objectives of the standard are complied with. The objective of clause 4.3, height of buildings, state to ensure buildings are compatible with the height, bulk and scale and existing and desired future character of the neighbourhood, of the locality, sorry. So the character of the neighbourhood has already been established and it should fit in with this. Another objective of clause 4.3b is to minimise the impact of overshadowing, visual impacts and loss of privacy, none of which have been met by the proposed development. So the proposal really does negatively impact on residential amenity. The CPS document doesn't address clause 4.6c III in relation to an appropriate height transition between the proposal from the adjoining flat buildings. It only speaks to the heritage building on Lloyds Avenue and not the existing flats in the area. The design is incompatible with the site and does not respect the fall of the land. It should step down to follow the natural contours of the land, but instead has no respect for the natural ground levels and all the site's constraints. The clause 4.6 document is misleading, showing the compliant front elevation, but it doesn't show you the rear elevation where it doesn't comply. Our flat has a small green space area at the back, as well as a closed drying line and a vegetable patch. We don't see any deep soil landscaping zone on the plans, and where will a puppy even go to a toilet? So we also object to the rooftop communal open space for noise concerns. And the other thing I just wanted to add finally, bear with me, is Has the proponent or council undertaken any market analysis to determine if the area is undergoing transition as claimed? Is there a market feasibility for knocking down 3 to 4 story flat buildings and rebuilding up to 6 stories? Because if you're saying that it's undergoing transition, these existing flat buildings have multiple landowners, most are non-English speaking background or elderly, and I think it's unlikely to be redeveloped. I contend that it would not be economically feasible to knock down and rebuild a 6-story flat building, because you need a lot more profit to make the money worthwhile, right? These guys are really lucky in that they bought up 2 old buildings that a lady lived to maybe 90, God knows how long. She was there forever, right? So they're really lucky to find these 2 single dwelling houses, and they're also very happy to get a 30% bonus where there currently wasn't for anyone in that area previously. So it's a little bit unfair as well. But yeah, my main concern is it should be reduced in height to a maximum 4 stories.
Thank you very much. Panel questions? Nope. No, thank you very much. Okay, our next speaker is Pedro Pereira. Online. Somewhere.
Pedro, you just need to press *6 to unmute your phone.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello. Yeah, hi. My name is Pedro Pereira. I'm a known and I represent I'm the secretary for the building to the rear of the proposed development. That is 47 Noble Street. I also agree with a lot what the previous speaker mentioned, but I'll try and keep it brief and sort of just listed in point form, sort of our concerns, I guess, that affects sort of myself and obviously other owners within the complex. And the first thing is the size of the combined 2 lots is less than 1,000 square metres. So that to us, the lot is actually quite small, even before you sort of whack up 6-story apartments. The current development proposal does not have enough setback or separation between existing buildings to either, that is on either the Wards Avenue or even to the back. There is also not enough transition to the existing neighbouring developments. The buildings just, there's continuity. If you drive down Wards Avenue, there's continuity. And then when you approach the proposed development side, the building just shoots right up. So it's just out of character and there's no continuity. Excessive height and mass and bulkiness in relation to the lot size surroundings. Doesn't fit in with the school building. So there's a school building on that street, which I assume obviously will be expanding over the years, but it's sort of, there's no consideration to that. Excessive, in my opinion, excessive overshadowing and subtle access, especially to the rear units to the back of 47 Noble Street. There's issues with privacy in terms of how windows and obviously due to the height and how windows are positioned in relation to the rear units of the 47 Noble Street, and also to a certain extent the neighbouring buildings on the same road, the 2- or 3-story existing buildings as well. The proposed development is not, it appears that it doesn't promote adequate site fragmentation, and appears to be an example of a proposed overdevelopment. Parking in that area is already limited. Obviously, there's parking issues due to the school, which obviously during school terms, it's got its own challenges, and adding another, more parking to the area is going to constrain that. The communal rooftop noise is also a concern, and I thought I'd just leave it as that, because a lot of other items have already been covered by the previous speaker.
Thank you very much. Members of the panel, any questions for Mr. Pereira? No? Okay, thank you. And now we've got 3 people registered to speak on behalf of the applicant. Rashid Andari as a consultant, Ben Tesoriero consultant, and Dr. Louise Camanzulli, who, despite being an environment and planning law specialist, is here registered as a consultant to speak to us today. So over to you people on behalf of the applicant.
Good afternoon, panel. Yes, there's all three of us, but we've sort of organised an order to speak between us. So I'll kick things off. My name's Ben Tesoriero. I'm the director at CPS, town planner and applicant for this development application. Now, you will have seen a comprehensive letter dated the 2nd of March, issued earlier this week, which responds categorically to each of the issues of refusal the council have identified in their assessment report. That's a 24-page letter. I don't propose to go over all of that at the moment. Happy to answer any questions at the end. But what I do want to talk about today is what we believe to be procedural unfairness in the way that this development application has been assessed by council. I specifically want to talk about the, if I expand on the assessment report and the DA history. What's omitted from that was that in early January...
Just pause you for 2 seconds. The planning panel's job today is to consider the development application that's before us. There are other places where you should direct complaints about council's behaviour, and just thought I should put that on the table, and then you can get back into whatever it is you want to use your time to tell us.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's important because you've got an assessment report in front of you which identifies the DA history, and that DA history leads towards the recommendation which council's put together. I think what's missing from that, which is important, is that in early January we received a phone call from council saying that they identified critical issues with the development application and called us in for a meeting. So that meeting took place on the 12th of January. And in that meeting, we were told that there was fundamental issues with the DA, specifically the applicability of the LMR to the site. As a consequence, the building height could not be supported, nor the floor space ratio, because it was too significant of a variation to what the provisions of the LMR provide. We disagreed with that position, citing clause 163 of the housing set. And the suggestion was from council in that meeting was that we withdraw the DA, that we amalgamate the site, which is because it's currently 2 lots, into a single parcel, and then resubmit, the purpose of which would then, in their mind, have one allotment for which the entirety of the LMR provisions could be provided. We disagreed, but nonetheless we received a letter which is identified as in part of the DA history, which reinforces that point. On the 23rd of January, we were told withdraw the DA, or else it'll be determined based on the information which is currently provided. We declined to withdraw the DA, and we're here today with an assessment report which has shifted the goalposts in our mind, because there's no longer any suggestion that the LMR doesn't apply to the site, and there's now no longer a suggestion that the building height is an issue either.
Ignore that because there's 3 of you.
Yeah, I'll try to take up the 9 minutes, but my point is that, you know, we respectfully ask that the application be deferred, because today there has not been a proper assessment of this application. We'll call in to meet with council, identified 2 critical issues which are no longer issues within the assessment, and in my professional opinion, the matters that remain are matters that you would ordinarily expect to see as part of an RFI letter. And that's precisely what council's lodgement fact sheet tells you. Once you submit a development application to council, they indicate that there's one of several outcomes that will happen. That is, if there's an assessment that warrants further information, design amendments will be given an opportunity to submit an RFI. Or if there's critical issues, then they will be asked to either withdraw the application or be determined on the information that's received. Given those critical issues no longer feature as part of the assessment, we believe we've been not denied the opportunity to provide a formal response to the issues which council is seeking to refuse development of the application for today. Now, that's the content of my letter. I've got a client who's very amenable, willing to work with council and wants to be able to sit down and work through these issues, which we believe are resolvable through relatively minor design amendments, provision of additional information that council is asking for, which we've started to source, and justifiable on merit for the reasons outlined in the letter. Now, my client's paid over $30,000 to lodge a development application with council. We've been told there's critical issues and we cannot pass go. They need to receive an assessment report which no longer raises these critical issues. And we just do not see that there's been fair treatment of this application, and we request that the panel defer and allow us the opportunity to work with council to resolve these issues, which essentially is going to provide critical housing infrastructure, affordable housing that's in an accessible area, in an LMR area, in an R4 high density zone. And in that context, I think that the application warrants a further look. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next?
Rashid Andari from Fuse Architects. I'll just say thanks for hearing us today. I sit on the State Design Review Panel in New South Wales. I also sit in the Design Excellence Advisory Panel for Randwick Council. And to be honest, I can't believe we're here talking about the minutiae of minor ADG disagreements when all of it could have been worked through with council. I'm here to answer any questions you have around the specifics, where the figures have been misrepresented, if you need clarity on that. But apart from that, I'd just like to get on the record and say it's like incredibly disappointing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, panel. I was asked to have a look at the application as you identified an environment planning lawyer, just to see if there were any threshold issues arising from the request to withdraw, in particular around the application of the LMR and the height concerns. As Ben has just outlined for the panel, those issues have been resolved and in fact don't arise in the assessment report. The only height non-compliance is featured on page 36 of your assessment report and is a very minor height exceedance relating to the lift overrun, and that is all. There is a question about the FSR. We believe we're compliant.
I was going to ask a question about that because council's put it through its systems and identified.
It seems to be a 20 square metre.
Your system identifies that it does. We need to just get an answer on that, and if there needs to be a 4.6 in relation to it, if there needs to be one before we can determine it,
absolutely
if it's a non-compliance with the standard.
Completely agree. And all the proponent is willing to reduce the GFA as necessary to bring it into compliance. There's plenty of spaces in which the apartment sizes can be reduced to accommodate if there is any exceedance. We don't really understand it, but I'm sure we could bottom that out with the council and resolve it. So those just go to the sort of questions about bulk and scale. I did hear from the objectives, and I do understand about this is a sort of, I guess, one of the first. It's a catalyst type site in terms of the application of the LMR reforms. And we are talking about, this building being situated amongst 3- and 4-storey walk-ups. But, we are 50 years on from the 70s and 80s in which those buildings were constructed. We are in the middle of a housing crisis. Development does need to be feasible in order to be able to contribute, which this development will, 20% affordable housing to the local government area. As Ben and Rashid have identified, what is left, and we did comprehensively seek to respond to the assessment report in the very limited time we had. I think the assessment report was issued on the 25th of February. On the 2nd of March, this very detailed, we appreciate, 24-page response came in. And the reason for that is we really wanted to show the panel that what is left is just very minor matters that relate to ADG, non-compliances, all of which are absolutely resolvable with a little bit more time with the council to work through those issues. Again, as Ben has said, we've got an applicant who is very amenable to working with the council to close out those residual issues. Obviously, just as a general reminder, and I'm sure the panel is very aware of this, but the ADG is meant to be required flexibly. We've obviously looked very carefully at the merits basis for any minor non-compliances and applied the Law and Construction Development Management Services in the City of Sydney, in which the court reaffirmed that the ADG's performance guide and focused on quality design goals only. There was a suggestion about, very major non-compliance with cross-vent. Again, we'd love to sit down with the council. That's not correct. We can demonstrate, in fact, that there's 100% compliance on cross-vent. It's just a bit of a misunderstanding about the way in which the cross-vent works across these apartments. All of that is just to say to you, and we're not expecting the panel to go through this in any detail, but if you did look at it, you will see that in all instances, we can easily demonstrate how we can respond to those issues, provide further information, or make very minor tweaks. We are talking about nips and tucks to this building to bring it completely in compliance with the controls. Even if I'm wrong about that, we'd like to have the opportunity to, I know I'm going to wrap up, to have the residual issues discussed with the panel at the next panel meeting. So we are asking for a 4-week deferral to work with the council. As Ben said, there's a $30,000 fee on the table to see if we can close out these minor issues. Ideally, a direction that the panel sit down with us and see if we can work these out. And also, if for some reason we don't close out the council's residual concerns, that the application come back before the panel with draft conditions of consent, because we might be able to persuade the panel how it is that the residual issues could be closed out with some additional conditions or other changes. Thank you, panel.
Thank you very much. Okay, questions for our applicants' representatives?
Yeah. The apartment design guide is a very good guide, and it's meant to actually alleviate some of the, the residents' concerns about privacy, overlooking sun shading. And there are some parts where you don't seem to comply. I mean, I think that a lot of it does, but the side elevations as you go up there's no setback after 4 stories. And also at the rear, I think it's level 4, there's a balcony right across, which actually breaches the, I think it's meant to be 9 meters there, isn't it? And that balcony encroaches into that. So people on that balcony are, closer to neighbours than I guess they should be. But I think that's actually quite solvable. But the side ones, now, the problem I have with it is that there is a lot of overshadowing on that neighbour to the south, directly to the south, including their balconies. And there are 3 stories now. And one thing I thought you could do is look at it as a 6-story building, which it can be if it puts affordable housing in, I think. And what would be do you still get the 70% compliance 2 hours in winter? Because it's directly on the south, which is a hard ask. But I think the current building is, at a big disadvantage because of your building, your proposal. And would it help if it's set back, if the upper levels are set back on the side? I'm not sure. But that, that should be looked at as well. This is quite a small site. I think you're not meeting the frontage. Am I right about that? Or I might have the wrong. There's a minimum frontage. But does it need?
So this one's the front issue is about entry around the side.
That's No, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about it. Another one I forgot to do. But again, the entry, I don't see that as a huge problem because the entry you're proposing is on the side, which makes sense because the core's in the middle. But you probably need to flag it better. It's so, some sort of awning or something so that people understand that's where you enter in. And also you can easily, of course, get the front unit.
I don't know that I'm not sure we can redesign it.
No.
By committee.
Well,
But the gist of what you're saying is that there are a number of issues that you could probably turn your minds to that would make a lot of sense.
And the only one that really concerns me is the sun shading on the southern neck.
So that was a question, I imagine. Would you like a response on that?
Yeah,
Okay.
if you can.
So I think the point that you're making with the question is exactly our point, right? The elements in there are all refinable so that both council and the developer can be happy. So to the points that you've raised around setbacks, we work with the ADG daily. Well, we're experts in it, and I then assess other people's applications on the panels that I sit on. we don't take that responsibility lightly. So in terms of compliance, the building separation fundamentally is around providing amenity both for our future occupants and to the neighbours. The 4.5 metre setback to the sides has been mapped with no immediate overlooking to those neighbours for building separation or compromise to privacy. The windows are all, and this is one of the reasons I think council have been confused about the natural vent, have all been reoriented away from the neighbours to avoid any privacy impacts on those neighbours. To the rear balcony, the building above the 4 stories above, in the ADG above 4 stories requires 9 metres. Our 5th story sets back to provide the 9 metres, but you're right, the balcony itself is trafficable. But the idea with the landscaping to the leading edge of that is that it can screen that, but we can also provide other mitigating elements for screening with whatever council are happy to live with.
Okay.
So the other thing that I'd say too is that I don't know how familiar you are, but the current, I guess the difficulty that was hinted at is this: the legislation is hot off the presses, and their state imposed development controls around what's applicable and what's not. One of the things that's happened both with the affordable housing set and the low and mid-rise as a addendum to that is the state government have introduced what they're calling pattern book designs. These are state endorsed by the government architect around what these types of accessible areas should look like. And we've got a pattern that we could map on the site that is 4.5 metres to a street frontage, that is 4 metres to the site boundary, that has none of the amenity that we're talking about for the units where 100% of them are naturally ventilated, and our building can fit within that envelope. I get that the posts are moving daily and we're all trying to keep up, but I guess what we're asking is that, as you hinted, Linda, that the things that are left are all able to be amended to council satisfaction. I imagine we do this every day. The things that are left aren't huge, and all we're asking for is an opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like to say, I've looked at that pattern after, this application, and yeah, I think it's unfortunate to have that as a pattern book example because it doesn't step back like the ADG asked for. It sort of contravenes the ADG, and I think that's confusing.
If you actually look at the pattern book, the government worked really hard with some of Australia's best architects. And what they've said is, we've made assessments on these sites in various orientations, and we're telling you that if you do these things, the components of the ADG that matter, which is a guide, right? Which is what they're doing. The components of the ADG that matter are satisfied, and there's no reason for council, or in this instance a panel, to reassess those criteria.
This is not a pattern book application.
No, but I guess the point is you could put the pattern book on this thing, and we're having the exact same conversation. We get that it's different because you haven't seen it before, but these are what is endorsed by the government as low and mid-rise.
Yeah, look, I think it's problematic, but I think you've got to look at the site, this particular site. So there are some impacts. As I say, to me, it's the neighbour on the south.
Yeah, so the neighbour on the south. So what the ADG talks about, existing context, and we're not allowed to diminish the amenity of that compliance by more than 20% in anything that we do. Our submission shows very clearly an elevational study that shows the living rooms and balconies are not diminished to beyond what the ADG says is required of us. The assessment is there, and this is what I mean. If we get an opportunity, we can present it to you, but we'd like an opportunity to walk council through it because it is there, has been highly considered, and it might not be very obvious, but we can help direct the detail so that you get a better understanding.
Yeah, so you need more conversation.
Oh, I'm happy to, if council don't want to sit, happy to sit and explain it to you guys so that we can show you where and if compliances are met or where they're not, and how we might be able to address.
We don't have the joy of being the assessing team. We're just the pattern. Anyway, next.
Okay, I for the panel to engage with deferral, we need to be very clear on what your intentions are. I have a 24-page letter that came yesterday that pushes back on most elements. For example, the numerical non-compliances with the setback controls are acceptable on merit due to the consistency with the objectives of the controls. This is the theme through your letter. We say, you say, everything's fine and it should be approved as is. I'm hearing from you now, okay, we're wanting to engage with you, come to the table, and I'm assuming in order for that to happen, you have to make some modifications to your building. Maybe minor, maybe not minor, I don't know, for the officer. So I need to be clear what your intention is seeking a deferral. Are you coming to the table wanting to change anything or not?
Yes.
Because if I look at this letter, that's not the theme of the letter. It's very much, okay, well, these are all the reasons the report's, you know, not quite right.
We're here to make changes, to work with the council cooperatively. There are some things we think with some more information might better address any concerns on some of these issues. But absolutely, we're there to work with the council to address some of those concerns. I think some of the things actually that Linda identified, I think we could definitely work with, like setting back the balcony and having a look at that upper level and having a look at overshadowing. Those things are no problem. Like, we can absolutely work with council on those things, which is why we sort of came today to say, but there's nothing fundamental. We genuinely think we sit down, we can work through those things. So yes, the answer is absolutely, we're here to work with council. Hence the reason I said direct us to sit down with council for over the next 4 weeks and resolve these things, because we believe we can.
Well, you can see from the tone of the letter we got, that's why I'm asking that question, because, you know, that theme's wasn't that obvious to me. That
I understand.
Okay, thank you.
I think the first paragraph is the theme. It's telling you that the first correspondence we had from council, they said this is problematic, and now they've just said there's things that are in here that don't tick the ADG boxes, and none of them in isolation should be reasons that any application gets refused.
Yeah.
What's left in that letter?
I think it's probably about the cumulative.
Yeah.
But most of it,
complementary things.
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. But anyway, we could argue for hours if we
Let's argue.
or we could work to, you know, you and council could work together to do something sensible. Andrew. No. Okay, I was going to ask the FSR and I did that. No, I'm good as well. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your time this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, panel.
Okie doke. We're now moving on to 153 Queens Road, Connells Point, and we've got Tom Simeonidis to speak to us.
Hello? Yes. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, hello. I live next door to the proposed development of 155 Queens Road. In principle, I don't have any objection to the development of this site, but I do have the following objections to the current proposal. Number one, the proposed building of a cabana below the foreshore building line that will restrict natural airflow and increase overshadowing. The fresco external wall that will restrict natural airflow and increase overshadowing. The balconies will directly overlook my property. The height of the swimming pool above the existing ground level is greater than allowed and will overlook my property. The development does not follow the natural landform and requires excessive earthworks. The excavation works are greater than the allowed and may cause damage to my property. The height of the building is 3 metres greater than the maximum allowed, and the floor space ratio is larger than allowed on the site. Thank you. So there are my objections.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Any questions? No? We're good? Okay. Thank you very much. Our next application is Lorraine Street, Peakhurst, and we have the owner and a consultant on the owner's behalf, Christopher Salettis. Maybe I hope they said that right. And this one's a bit harder. Emmanuel Chatsinicolau.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
My apologies. You need to press the button on there so your things go red. Yeah.
My name is
Christopher Salidis. Again, thank you for allowing us to speak here today. I won't get into too much of the technical. I'll allow Manos to answer any technical queries you might have. But from our point of view, we've inherited this building from my late father. My father's passing we weren't prepared for it. So me, my mum, and my brother who's behind me all equally own the building. My brother's pretty much the caretaker of the building, handyman. We just thought the building needs some love. It needs some remedial attention as it is. And when we looked into the budgets of those remedial works, it was more feasible to improve the building. There's some shortcomings with the way the building currently is, so we're working with some existing constraints there. But we looked at the potential of spending money in a way that the output that comes back is equivalent to what was spent. Because at the moment, we just can't fund any form of remedial. Me and my brother are just family men with kids and salaries, right? So, no development experience from my point of view. I consulted with Manos Architect. We tried to achieve the maximum that was allowed in respect to GFA. I think even the original design was under the GFA. Manos, on behalf of me, contacted council twice. We didn't really get the idea that this was going to be a potential rejection. The 2 times we contacted, the first contact that we got back from council in respect to where you guys stood was last Wednesday. Immediately got onto it. Sorry, Manos, but day and night and weekend to redesign, because I'm here to work with council. We submitted a second design, which I actually prefer. Right? I don't have the visual context to see that second design the first time around. 8 units still achieves financially is achievable. It's also and the result because, by the way, we inherited the building, but we also inherited the mortgage. It's not it doesn't come, so it's currently a rent in versus cost out sort of a balanced scenario, with a little bit left over for my mum, because she's obviously not on a pension because she has inherited property. And we just don't. My dad built it. I was 9. I remember the job site. Like, I cleaned bricks on the site. Like, I don't want to knock it down. But I considered it, and the cost to rebuild something there is just not feasible, particularly with the basement or anything like that. So that went out the door. But I particularly personally don't want to. I want to keep the bones. I want to keep the structure. I want to keep the perimeter walls and just improve the units. Currently, the units internally, I mean, they may have made sense in the 90s, but they're damp, they're cold, they're dark. I feel that the second revised set, had we been given the opportunity maybe 3 months ago, I would have been straight onto those contentions and try to meet in the middle. But I feel like the second design covers any issues with communal space, setbacks. It's not as invasive on the facade. It's like 30% below the GFA limit. I feel like all the apartments are 100% better than what they are now. And even the car park, the existing car park, sure, theoretically has 6 spots, but not really a bin area. The new car park design, which was sent, that, and some of the panel raised good contentions about the turning circle, which is currently an issue, right? You can't go forward out now, right? But I believe with the revised design, we've resolved that, and there's been turning circle analysis done. We've reduced the commercial space, moved the bin area into where currently the commercial space is to create the ability to do a turning circle. Yes, it's only 6 spots, but it's 6 spots with a designated bin area, 10 parking spots, a shared zone for disabled, and a loading boat base / turning circle area. So I feel like it's a vast improvement for the space that we're working with. And ultimately, it's going to look nice. It's going to improve the street view. I want to work with council. I was surprised, not necessarily disappointed, just surprised it wasn't. I'm not familiar with Georges River Council or the process, and my architect usually works in the eastern suburbs. So I think they do what's called a stop the clock. We were asked initially for some additional documentation, so we were never asked for an acoustic report. So some of the contentions about acoustic, I guess, can be addressed later at CC. I can't afford basically to redo a DA application that's cost a lot of money that me and my brother put together to get to this point. We'd just like the opportunity to address the contentions through a deferral and a redesign that works for everyone. 8 apartments still works for us. Very happy if that is possible and feasible. Went back to the builder who did a POQ. The price, the cost work, the rent return works. It'll be an uplift to the building, be improved in many, many facets. Regarding parking, plenty of street parking. The traffic consultant insisted because of the golf course across the road and the train station nearby. And every time I go there, yeah, there is plenty of street parking. I don't think with the housing shortage in mind and the condition that the building's in, and it will remain in that condition without any, give take in this situation. Unfortunately, I think this overall, it's the design. What we're proposing is an improvement, and we wish the opportunity to be able to improve that design to meet some of these contentions as opposed to a full rejection. That's all we ask. So we'll get back to our consultants and get them to tidy that up. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Do I have any time left or?
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, panel. I sort of continuing off what Chris said. We had the opportunity to receive feedback for the first time towards the end of last week. It was very extensive, and it gave us an opportunity to zero in on the shortcomings of the existing design, and we pretty quickly came back with a new design that we informally submitted on Monday. I assume you potentially haven't had the opportunity to review it in detail. It basically focuses on 4 key parts of the feedback that we received and essentially the objections. It achieves better apartment design guide compliance than the original. As Chris said, we improved the vehicular access and the overall safety and operation of that existing car park. In terms of the built form, we obviously made a substantial difference by increasing the setbacks in the rear, the front, most importantly, and the side, allowing more natural ventilation and better solar access. And lastly, we were very thorough in assessing the amenity of the neighboring buildings in terms of visual privacy and acoustic privacy. I don't know if you've had a chance to review the cover letter that we submitted, but in that we show a few diagrams of what the view from neighboring private open spaces would be, just to kind of give council a comprehensive idea of the impact and the merits of the new approval. So as we said, what we're hoping from you today is the opportunity to work with you and work out on the basis of the new design and work out any residual issues that would hopefully lead to an approval. That's about it. Thank you.
Righto, members of the panel, questions?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit difficult for us because we have to assess what has been submitted, but I do appreciate what the amendments that you have made, but they're sort of not official, but you can make them official. And I think it's going in the right direction. I'm a bit worried about parking. Your argument is there's enough on-street parking. I mean, you'll have to talk to council about that. Whether it's going to cause a problem having such little parking. Just a couple of things I picked up. When you have entries to units, I think you need weather protection. I don't think you've got it at the moment. I mean, even just a hood. And the current units on the ones we went in today it's on the first floor because there's no second floor. Their outlook isn't good, right? So, and I think what you're proposing will be better, but it's what do you look at when you look out your living room window, and what sort of privacy do you have? Is there any greenery? You might think about that. I think down on the the car level, you have to be very clear how pedestrians come in and how they don't conflict with the vehicles. And it's not clear to me on that drawing. There should be a pedestrian path that is safe and also accessible. And talking about that, you need to look, I think you've got a BCA consultant, you might have an access consultant, but because you're keeping that existing stair, it's quite problematic how someone in a wheelchair would navigate. You know, they could probably get to the lift, but is that sufficient? Because there's a Disability Discrimination Act, and if they can't come in, you know, from the street, from Lorraine Street, which they can't because you have to go upstairs, that might be a problem. I think you should specifically look at that, about access to people with disabilities. I think they have to get to the door of any unit anyway. I'm sure they can tell you, and to a car space, but you can't have steps inside. The other thing is for BCA, I was wondering how you're going to get compliance because there's travel distances from units to fire stairs, and you've got it's nominally 6 meters, and yours is much more. And so there's supposed to be things you've got to put in place for that. But I think that should be upfront. What are those things, and are you happy with them? And does it work for the design, etc. So that's probably, I find the circulation pretty convoluted, but once you keep that stair, you've got that problem. I'd like to see it not kept, but and think about air conditioning as well. I think maybe it can be done later, but it can affect the design a lot. So if you think about where the air conditioning units would be, then you're not looking right at them. Yeah, okay,
Lovely, thank you.
Just a very quick question. Obviously, we've got a partial set of plans with ideas on them, conceptual really, which makes our job difficult because clearly it's coming very late. No, we don't have an assessment report from the council, for example, on any of this. I've just got one question from my own understanding. You said that the current units are pretty, well, they're not contemporary and don't meet sort of standards that people expect to rent units. So is that flaw being addressed, or is that flaw pretty well being left as is? Like, what's the improvement offering for those units?
Yeah, so that will. So the original apartments are basically arrayed around.
We went there.
Yeah, like okay, right. Essentially the new design, and actually the original design that we submitted as well as the new one, it radically changes the way the units are being laid out. So essentially we're trying to leverage the fact that that we have a northern boundary to number 64 Lorraine Street. So essentially, the idea is that they're all arrayed around a central opening, which is a completely different logic to the existing one. So by virtue of that, we're trying to leverage opportunities for better ventilation and better solar access. So I think I don't necessarily think that the existing units are very comparable to the design that we've provided, unless you think otherwise.
So it appears to me there was a big open space in the middle. You're going to leave that space there and carve up some courtyards. You're going to turn some of that big area into courtyards. That's the plan, yeah. And you're going to do internal and other things.
In a way, that central island is going to be expanded all the way to the northern boundary and expanded on either side towards the front and the back.
That's for
so it's becoming like 4 or 5 times.
And that's the level that's there now.
Yeah. Yes.
And then you're doing something else above.
That's right. Yeah.
The new units are going above.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're creating an artificial internal external frontage in a way that would leverage the northern orientation.
Yep. And look, I don't know much about construction, but I presume everybody will have to move out while this is done. The whole place will have to be vacant, the tenancies, the commercial, everything.
The only thing that's left is the perimeter walls and the slab.
Okay.
The entire first floor footprint is being redone to suit current codes, better lifestyle. So the way you picture the units now, that's non-existent. all those walls will be demolished.
Okay, so you've got 6 parking spaces and you need 16 according to the rules.
Hmm. But sorry, we've only got 8 units. Well, we're proposing now 8, so it'd be a bit different. It'd be less. It'd probably be 12
Okay,
or 10.
what would it be? You
What would it
need
be?
14? Okay,
10 or 12.
yeah.
I'd have
So with the bearing in mind the new set of drawings that's just turned up this week, which council hasn't formally assessed, but if that was the case, so they need 14 and they've got 6. So they're short 8 parking spaces and there's no loading zone for the commercial.
They're suggesting that the suggestion in the drawings is that the what do you call it, the pull-in bay, the turning
reversing
bay
bay.
is also
Yeah,
the loading bay,
It's the loading bay as well. Okay.
which maybe
What's council's policy in relation to things like parking stackers? I'm not sure if there's enough space there, but does council have any view on?
It's insufficient floor to
Not-
ceiling.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. What else? Oh, just for absolute formality, there's a reference to the Waverley LEP in the 4.6, but I'm sure you meant Georges River consistently all the way through, didn't you?
Yeah.
Could you confirm that, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
My
very much.
mistake. My apologies.
No, that's okay. All right. Anybody got any other questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much for coming along. We appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And our final speaker this afternoon is the very patient.
Mate, can I mention one more thing as to the question you had? I might be wrong, but potentially now that because we've changed the turning bay, and now it's got a reverse turning circle and cars come out, the walkway could be moved up against the wall, which is in line with the hallway. Remember you talking about safe access? So instead of the walkway being on the left of the gate could be moved over and the walkway can line up with the current hallway.
if you could achieve that.
I mean, I don't know if that works PCA-wise and all that, but because now we've changed the car park and we've got that reversing turning bay, that strip there is no longer part of the turning. We can move everything over. So again, we want to work with council, really, really do. Like that's our intention. I just don't think it. I find that like to resubmit a whole new application, I think we can just work and allow the consultants to reconvene, assess the contention, and provide a revised.
And
design.
look,
That's all we're hoping for.
there's options for us. It's approve, defer, refuse, and if it goes to refuse, then there's also the option of an 8.2 review.
Okay.
So, and your consultant will be able to tell you what all those things mean in technical terms. But thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Mark Boutros, a very patient person, is online to finish the public speakers today in relation to Walton Street, Blakehurst.
Yes, so my name is Mark Boutros, I'm the consultant planner for this application. We have the architects here. We are happy to answer any questions that the panel may have with respect to the application. We accept the conditions of consent, and that's about it. We obviously endorse the recommendation for approval.
Terrific. Any questions for Mr. Boutros or his colleagues? No? Oh, yeah, good. Okay.
Yeah, I think you've cited the houses well. Only question, I think the house behind, is it house 2, on the lane, it's set back less than council, require. So I think it's 1.7 meters and it's supposed to be 3 meters. Is that right? So I just wonder what your have you looked at what's happened all up and down the lane and what other people have done, and why is it okay to be so close to the boundary on the lane?
I believe we're set back more than 3 meters, more than 1.7 meters.
So that's
What's
side setback. Can't find
the side setback? Yeah, it's 3.7, which Which setback are you referring? Is it to Linwood Lane for unit 1?
The one behind the house behind. I can't get, you know, the
Okay.
one
That-
where you access it from the lane, not from Walton Street.
Yeah, the first one.
3 meters.
So I understand on the ground floor we have a 3.7 meter setback.
Oh, okay. Well, is
Yeah, and on the first floor,
it right? So is it the front house that's only 1.7 meters from the lane?
correct. But yeah, so unit 1, yeah, it's 1.7 meters from the lane, correct?
Yeah, you're right. I've got it up now. Yeah. So, whereas I think council would prefer 3 meters. It's
Correct.
road setbacks. So how does that work in the locality? Are there other houses that are that close to the boundary in that lane?
Yeah, so the adjoining corner, so the dwelling house on the corner has I believe a 900 mil setback. So we're consistent with that, and we're consistent with the other side setbacks of the other dwellings that have secondary frontages to that lane.
To that lane, like in that same block.
In that same, yeah, in the lane, yes, correct.
Okay. So in terms of how it works in the context, it'll be fine.
Yes, it sits well within the context.
Yeah. Sorry, it's a side setback to the front house. I got that wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I remember.
Anybody got anything else? No? Okay, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, and thank you for your patience while we managed to finally get to your matter. Like to thank everybody else who might be listening to us out there in cyberspace for your participation this afternoon. I'm going to now declare this public meeting part of the meeting closed. And we will move into the closed deliberative session straight away. Thank you to all of the council staff as well for all your hard work that's assisted in the discussion. And meeting closed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.